So, this is an opportunity to hear about our why from Brady Shearer. But first, I want to talk about our why as the Michigan Conference. The mission of the Michigan Conference of the United Church of Christ is to bring churches closer together and church closer to God, equipping pastors and congregational leaders through ministries of support, guidance, and leadership development. What's our why today? The purpose of this training is to create digital evangelists and media ministers who serve as ambassadors for the church and for Jesus Christ. So, why does social media matter for the church? Here's a video.
On the fence as to why social media is important for your church, or if you need help convincing someone else of its importance. In this video, I'm going to lay out the definitive case for why social media is necessary for your church. Well, hey there, I'm Brady Shearer from ProChurchTools.com, helping you seize the 167 hours beyond your Sunday service. We publish new videos every single week, so make sure that you hit the subscribe button below. And if you like this video, make sure you hit the like button as well. Let's start by thinking about this. Not too long ago, on January 1st, 2005, platforms like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and Snapchat didn't even exist in the public's eye. Fast forward to today, and social media is one of the most dominant forces in our culture. And this is the core reason why social is so important to the future of your church: attention. I like to say that attention is the most valuable commodity that your church can possess. In fact, let me say it again. Attention is the most valuable commodity that your church can possess. I mean, think about it. Your church could have the most dynamic speaker, the most engaging worship, the most vibrant kids and student ministries, but if no one ever showed up, it wouldn't matter. Before we can share the hope of Jesus with anyone, or before we can disciple an existing believer, we need their attention. And this is why social media is so important to your church, because that's where the attention already exists. According to Pew, 68% of all American adults are on Facebook. So think about that for a moment. If there was a public space in your community where 7 out of every 10 people in your city visited regularly, would you have a presence there as a church? Absolutely. It goes without saying. On the flip side, let's look at church attendance numbers. In the year 2000, Barna reported 58% of adults had attended church in the last month. In 2015, however, that number had decreased to just 46%, a drop of 12 full percentage points in just 15 years. And sure, social media is important today, but it's going to be even more important tomorrow. Millennials like myself, we're natives to social media. We grew up on it. Currently, 1 in 3 American workers is a millennial. That means we're not an up-and-coming generation. We're not on deck. As a matter of fact, we are currently the single largest age group in the American workforce already. And that piece of the pie that we currently own, 1 in 3, is only going to increase. It's only going to go up. Of course, beyond that, if you think social media is just for millennials, that's not true either. The most recent data from Nielsen revealed that the average adult ages 18 to 34 spends 6 hours and 19 minutes on social media every week. That's the millennial number, but even higher than that, higher than the millennials, are adults ages 35 to 49. They are spending 6 hours and 58 minutes on social media each week. And even those 50 plus are still spending more than 4 hours on social media every week. And the point I'm trying to drive home is this. For decades, our churches have poured the majority of our time, money, staff, and volunteers into creating a memorable weekend service, putting together the best 1-hour Sunday morning experience that we can. But we're currently living through the single biggest communication shift in the last 500 years, the biggest communication shift since the printing press. And so we need to begin to shift our focus. There are 168 hours in a week. And at Pro Church Tools, we're all about helping you seize the 167 hours beyond your Sunday service. Instead of pouring every last dime into improving your weekend experience, instead of demanding people pay attention to what you're doing, instead of looking at your community and saying, hey, come to us, it's time we begin to go to them and simply show up where their attention already is fixed. Social media has the infrastructure, they've got the audience, most importantly, they have the attention. All we need to do is dive right in. If you liked this video, make sure you hit the like button below and definitely subscribe to the Pro Church Tools channel. We post new videos like this every single week, helping your church seize the 167 hours beyond your Sunday service. If you've got questions or comments, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching.
So, what I love about that video is that video was recorded before the pandemic, and all of the facts that he shared are still relevant today. And I'm sure the stats are even more telling than they were before the pandemic about the usefulness and about the necessity for churches and really all of us to look at social media not just as another place to be, but really as a tool for ministry. So, as we think about our messaging and how we use media, how we use social media, digital media, things like website, or YouTube or Facebook, who are we talking to? Who is our audience? In this particular training, there are a number of folks who registered, and I have captured some of those folks by these images on the left. These images represent what's called personas. And personas are an opportunity for you to group together types of people that are in your congregation or in your community. If you're a community advocate or a leader, it's the same thing applies. If you were a CEO or a teacher, the same thing applies. You can't necessarily craft a message for every single specific person that you reach, but you can group people by similarities. So I'll just break down the 6 personas that I have just to give you an example. So this first persona is of Liz, and it represents the board of directors. It represents someone that has some buy-in and a key stakeholder. This next image at the bottom next to Liz is Jacoba. She represents a local church pastor, someone who has been a pastor for a quite number of years, and who might not have always used digital tools in the way that she might be using them now. She's not a digital native, but she's active online, or at least her church is. The image right above Jacoba is Rudra, and he's someone who is a pastor. He is a pastor in another denomination, and he's UCC. So it represents someone with a dual affiliation, someone that might be approaching messaging and really theology and faith life in a slightly different way than us UCC or United Church of Christ folks. Then we have Reverend Kim Newport, someone who is utilizing social and digital media platforms on a daily basis for her ministry. So someone who's already active and online. And then the image right below Kim is of Galen. Galen is someone who is a brilliant person who has engaged people and platforms for a long, long time, and yet still wants to learn about how to utilize social and digital media in effective ways. And then we have Kate, who's on the right. Kate is a pastor from another state. Most of our folks attending live are from Michigan, and the folks that view later on are from a wide number of places. But Kate is from some place other than Michigan, which then reminds me to pay attention that not all of the content needs to be specific to one geographical area. But in addition to that, Kate is also on the board of directors for the United Church of Christ. So she is also a key stakeholder and someone whose input, positioning, and opinion really matters. So before we go into our breakout rooms, here is another video.
Your church wants to build relationships and impact lives. A marketing plan can help you develop ministries that satisfy the particular needs of your surrounding community. United Methodist Communications has 5 easy tips for creating a church marketing plan. Number 1, values and vision. Who are you and where are you going? Discovering your congregation's demographics and personality can help you create a marketing plan. Set your church on a clear path with a short vision statement. Number 2, perception and needs. You know the cliche, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. Think outside the doors. What does the community think about your church? Why would someone visit? What are your neighbors' needs? Aim to create an atmosphere that makes your church simply irresistible. Number 3, strategy. Determine your church's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Define your target audience. Of course, you will still serve several groups, but in a marketing plan, it's important to focus your communications and programs on a specific segment. For example, if you're located near a school, you might want to think about families with children. Number 4, implementation. Create a list of specific tactics that meet the needs you identified, like hosting an after-school program, a community service event, or cultivating a community garden. Dig in and brainstorm. Number 5, evaluation. Set goals and get to work. Create a timeline and assign willing members to help accomplish the goals. And when one is complete, check it off the list and celebrate. United Methodist Communications has a free complete marketing plan guide with worksheets and detailed instructions at umcom.org/church marketing plan. And for more church communication tips, check out youtube.com/mycomtips.
So now we'll have an opportunity to go out into breakout rooms. And in this breakout opportunity, we will have a little bit more time. We'll have 10 minutes. Pastor Kim, instead of 5. And the idea is that you are going to be writing and talking about personas, the personas in your congregation. I'll put these questions in the chat so you don't have to write them down, or you can if you'd like. But think about your congregation. Group them into 3 to 8 categories. Name or list each category and describe them, similarly to the way that I described the personas that are on our slide. What are the joys of each category? And you don't have to go too in depth because obviously we have 10 minutes and that means that each person will just have a few minutes to speak each. But then what are the pain points of each category? And then how does each communicate? And by that, I mean, what platforms do they use? Are they newspaper readers? Are they texters? Are they people that like to talk on the phone? Are they people that like to Zoom or do video chat? And if you don't have all of the answers, it's okay to start really just pondering what the answers might be. And you never know what might happen as you're talking with one another, what might be generated in terms of your own ideas about the personas in your community. And if you are not a pastor, you can still think of your community in this way and talk about the personas that you encounter or you engage in your community. So now we'll have about 10 minutes in our breakout rooms. Is there anyone that would like to share about what you have talked about in your small group regarding personas and media messaging? And don't all feel compelled to say something, but if you do have something on your heart, it would be great to hear what that is.
So in my work and in my heart, one of the personas that is intriguing to me is youth and young adults. And there's all kinds of like church safety pieces that go into what it looks like to be on social media and having like conversations or have, liking or friending people in that age group, but at the same time having content that shares with them about the United Church of Christ, about the Michigan Conference, about local churches that are safe and loving places for them to belong, I think is really important. And so that was one of the personas that I brought up and I'm thinking about always.
Thank you, Jen. Margarita.
Yeah, Jen, I'm curious. Do you think that in a church Facebook page, there should be like a section for the young people? Maybe also picking up from the children's time. The message for the children during the service.
So it's an intriguing conversation to figure out what it looks like to create content that's meaningful and relevant to young people. I don't think it ever hurts to be sharing that a local church has programming for children and programming for youth. I think that's really important. I also think sometimes just things that are rainbow and God loves you, and if you have questions, that's awesome, right? I think some of those things that appeal to people of all ages are also important for that particular persona of youth and young adults. So, but I think it's an intriguing conversation about whether or not a church has specific content for young people. So.
To piggyback off of that, and thank you, Jen, I think it's really helpful to think about your Facebook page as a dynamic space, but that it can't really be, the content can't really be specific to the certain personas. You can make sure that there's content for all of the personas, but it would be hard to say these posts on Wednesday are just for youth, or these posts on Tuesday are just for the women's fellowship. What would be more reasonable and perhaps realistic is that when you look at the planning calendar or the content calendar that you have for the week or for the month, to make sure that there's something that connects with all of the personas. So some video that highlights the ministries, some worship information about the youth gatherings, information about the upcoming confirmation group meeting, but that's something that really connects with everyone. The way that you would be able to, I think, do what you're talking about, Margarita, is having groups. So there is an app called Circle. Facebook has community groups that are specific to certain populations. So if you wanted to say our youth group or our children's ministry has its own Facebook group or has its own meetup on Circle, then that would be actually very reasonable, because then whoever the leader is for that group or the leaders are for that group, then they're the ones that will make sure that everybody in the group has the connection information to gather on Circle or know what the name of the Facebook group is and make sure that everybody's added. And then that can become their online space. And then the Facebook page is still one that communicates to the whole church. And then those separate groups nurture the relationships within those specific personas. So there's a little bit of a both and. Does anyone else have anything that you are thinking of regarding personas, or perhaps this conversation specifically about online spaces for individual personas?
For me, one thing I would add is that although I'm constantly thinking about my congregation and keeping them updated on social media, and I will plan out, when I want to post certain events, because if I post them way too far in advance, they get lost in the shuffle. So, there's timing and things like that involved. But also that I'm paying attention to the greater community, just in terms of like the last week, there was a 5th grade boy at one of the local schools who took his own life, a 5th grader. And so as that was all over the local news here and community pages, having something go up on the church about suicide awareness, hotline numbers, things like that, because then there are members of my church that will share that to their personal pages. And you want to get the information out there as much as possible. That may not be something I certainly did not plan on that for that week to go up. And I wish it didn't have to. But showing that you're aware of what's going on in the greater community and letting your church members know, yes, our social media people, whoever's in charge of it, whether it's the pastor or a layperson, is paying attention and we do care about what's happening everywhere, I think is very important.
Thank you for that, Kim. That's absolutely a great point to make, is that even in all of our best planning, when you're a digital evangelist or a media minister or even a parish pastor, you have to make space for real life current events. And those aren't always planned, and yet you can respond in a meaningful way that communicates to your community resources and information, and certainly values about our faith and how we respond and show up for one another in these situations. Thank you. Anyone else?
In terms of personas is a very nice way of looking at things. I mean, we had a discussion about a little bit about demographics, I guess, is another way of describing how you would group people. So we have, in the case of our church, and how many you want to try to have, but we have an older group of folk who often have been members for at least 5 years, if not 10, and so they are can be couples and singles, and maybe it's worth separating those in terms of what you would write up, but maybe not. And then we have families with younger children, but in our case, no one I would put in the so strongly, well, a few, but very few in the youth category, who, at least that we see at church in those families. So those would be categories which you've already sort of touched on, but that one could easily think about having separate, if one had the staffing to do it, have social media groups, or I don't know what Circle is. I think that's something within Facebook, I gather, or
No, it's a completely different app.
oh, okay. So, yeah, I'm a bad person to ask anything about social media. So,
Well, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of social media platforms, and it's impossible to know all of them. There is a resource list that you'll get at the end. It's the same one if you were at the first training, that has the 35 most used and top social media platforms, but there are dozens more. But yeah, there are many platforms, and each platform speaks in a certain way. And I know a lot of small groups that use Circle, Bible studies, churches that have a large number of small groups, and some that have small groups that, maybe they don't have 90 groups at their church, they only have 3. It's an opportunity to use that space. It does cost, whereas Facebook is free. That's another difference, but you're able to control the content a little bit more. I don't want to get into all the specifics of each individual platform, but I love that you made the connection to demographics, because that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about demographics here. And when you're thinking about your church, there are things that we all have in common in our certain groups or with our demographic identifiers. And that just helps us get to know people, helps us get to know how to communicate with people. And it also helps us get to know how people communicate and what their needs are. Yes, Marguerite.
I have a burning question, and I'm sorry if this is really, but I come from a tradition that the website was the key point, the connection point. But you seem to stress all social media, maybe because, in the morning you look at the news, you look at the Facebook, or you look at one of all the other things. Okay. Can you tell me a little bit the difference between these two method, or maybe it's something you want to cover later. So
Yeah.
forget about the
Oh,
question.
no, this is great. So there is something that comes a little bit later about websites. But when I think about media and digital media, I think about anything that allows for electronic communication. So social media certainly involves platforms like um, Facebook and YouTube that allows for user created content, but also allows for conversation and community building. Some might argue that some platforms do community building better than others. But whenever there is the opportunity for that engagement, that to me, that encompasses all of social media. Digital media, that would include websites. That would include photos that you generate, videos that you make, things that people are consuming in the digital space. Your website is your front door. And if you don't have a website, because many churches don't, they just have a Facebook page, then that Facebook page becomes their front door. Or if they're not on social media and they do just email communications and they email out their newsletters or their Sunday morning program information, then that is their space. So anything and everything that encompasses all of digital platforms and media, that really is what I think of as social media. Okay, I'm looking at the chat and it says, yes, passive versus active interaction. That's exactly right. Typically with social media, your content shows up while someone is scrolling and looking at other things. Websites require folks to actually seek out the information, and people are less likely to read all the content on the websites. And that is true. Social media has become the gateway. When people are online, they're already there. So if something pops up about your church that's intriguing, then they'll click and they'll investigate. But chances are they'll do that before they say, I saw this post from First Congregational. Let me go to their website. Usually when people go to the website, it's if they're planning on a visit or if they're thinking about a visit or if they want to know, what does this church believe? Who is the pastor? Now, I did some investigation for everybody who registered, and I looked at your social platforms. I looked at all your digital platforms, and we all do the best we can. So this isn't a how you can do better, but really we all should be thinking through the lens of a first-time visitor. If I come to your website and I don't know who the pastor is, I don't know who the people are, I don't know if I'll fit in because there are no pictures of people. I don't know if you're a diverse community. I don't know if you're all Black or all white or if you speak Korean. Now, chances are, if it's all in English, I'll assume that you all are English speakers, but is there an interpreter? Is there bilingual services? Is it handicap accessible, wheelchair accessible? Is it kid friendly? There's one website where I still don't know who the pastor of the church is. I know about all of the groups of the church. I know about the history of the building, but I have no idea who the pastor is. And that's concerning because I know the pastor, but if I were a first time visitor, I would be kind of suspect. Like, So these are all questions that we can have, but certainly these are all going to be ever evolving. They're all works in progress. What you do for your website today might not work 2 years from now. A media audit is a great tool to just have a few folks in your congregation and then a few folks who aren't in your congregation. Take a look at your media platforms. Go to our website, check out our Facebook page, or go to our Instagram page. What do you get from your time on our pages? What have you learned, or what questions do you have? I mean, those are just examples, but I think that your website is important, and it's not always going to be the first stop or the first connection point unless someone is really truly trying to figure out what you believe or whether or not they should visit. Does anyone else have anything that they want to bring up about websites or platforms in general before we move on to our next slide?
Unmute here. Jen made the comment that typically with social media, your content shows up while someone's scrolling, looking at other things. So the implication is that it comes in and interrupts you while you're doing something else. But you're already on that platform, at least. Although, I mean, you can get texts, of course, anytime, anywhere. So maybe you could just expand on that aspect as someone who's not a very social media attentive.
Yeah, so I don't know if I would use the word interrupt, but it is a great concept, and literally it does actually apply. But the idea is that social media has created a scrolling culture. There is a news feed that you go to, and I think of it as the town square. Everyone has posted something on their pages, and if you follow them, it'll show up in your news feed. And so if you don't want their content to show up in your news feed, you can still be their friend, but on Facebook, but you can unfollow them, and then you won't see their content unless you go to their pages to check it out. Now, for advertisers, that's different because they pay for space, and so they pay for their content to show up based on the demographics of each user. So, for example, if I bought an ad to advertise for this training, I would pay for this ad to show up on anyone's news feed that has any interest in social media. So then, depending on my budget, that could be everyone. But if you're a church person, that would narrow down my focus. If you're a UCC person or a person in a mainline church, that would narrow it down even more. So maybe not every single person would receive that content, but I could specify it to be the people that I wanted to reach. So in a way, it is interrupting, but it's also targeting your audience. It's target marketing. The other piece is if you are following them and they post every day, you'll see more from them every single day than you would someone who posts maybe once or twice a week or once a month. The other piece that I'll add is if you get notifications, then you can also receive their information without being on that specific site. You could just receive notifications on your phone saying that someone has posted a new video or someone has shared a new picture. And then that is an invitation for you to click on it, go to the site, open it up, and to view it if you're not already on the site scrolling. So in a sense, if you're already on the site or already in the town square, and I think about just being in the center of the town square and you hear all these conversations happening, which ones catch your attention? And on social media, it's the same. You're scrolling through your news feed. Some of those posts will catch your attention, and some you'll just keep scrolling on by. Anyone want to add to that?
I don't want to add to it. I wish you would say something about the reels that people are posting. They
Yeah.
seem to be eye-catching for sure.
Visual content is always going to be the best content, and reels, they're short, they can be funny, engaging, or they can be really deep and mystifying, but it's the attention grabber. And social media attention span is 3 seconds. If you can grab someone's attention in 3 seconds, which a reel does that, they don't have to read right away. Their visual senses are all immediately captured, and they're hearing something, and then they might be reading something, but you're engaging more of the person in that first 3 seconds than you would if it were a text post only. Photos will always remain part of that because they're visual. What's interesting is my personal stats, and it's different for everyone's pages, but my pictures, my photos get more views than my reels on Facebook, right? But on Instagram, it's the opposite. So it depends on the platform, and it also depends on your audience, but visual is always going to be more impactful. And because reels have music, sometimes they have words and images, and they show a variety of different things at once. That first 3 seconds is more powerful on reels than any other platform. And I see Kim has unmuted.
Right. So my reels on Facebook, do significantly better than anything I could ever write. Statistics show that people who are younger than, we'll just say 40, maybe 45, do not, the attention span is incredibly small. We live in a flip society. So when I'm on TikTok and I'm scrolling up and looking at videos, I know within, like Lauren said, 3 seconds if I'm going to actually watch it or if I'm just going to keep moving. And so reels will grab people's attention as long as you open them with something that gets their attention. But words are significantly less likely to be read. People are doing less reading and more watching. So that's what I would say about that. And then in terms of just going back to the website briefly, like right now, my church website is being redone as we speak. And it was just redone 3 years ago. But making it stay current and making sure that it is, that there are links to your social media accounts on your website. And so the two go hand in hand. Because people more normally will not go to your website first, but when they do, having it short and succinct, less words, more pictures, is really important.
Thanks, Kim. So now we will move on to our next slide, and we have a video about messaging triangles. This is called interview techniques. And I want you to think of every time you have a conversation that you are being interviewed. As an ambassador, as a minister, as an evangelist, fill in the blank. You represent your church. You represent your denomination if you are a part of one. You represent your family if you are a part of one. You represent your community. You are being interviewed. There isn't an off day, right? Whatever you say matters. Everything you say matters. And there is a way to make sure that even if you're at the grocery store, or at the ball game, or at church, that you're speaking life and you're speaking in such a way that represents the values of your faith, that represents who you are as a person of faith. So here is a message.
This next session is titled The Message Triangle. At the Alliance, we love the message triangle because it's some sort of magic tool. Once you understand the concept and structure of a message triangle and you use it to develop your message, you are good to go. You will never again need to develop another message, unless, of course, new information comes up. And the good thing with using the message triangle is that you're not going to develop a message at every engagement that you're being invited to. At the end of this session, there are 2 outcomes that we are looking for. One, we would like for you to understand what a message triangle is and to actually develop your own message triangle. I have mentioned earlier the purpose of a message triangle, but to ensure that everyone or you are saying the same thing everywhere, whether you've written a story for the website, or you're being interviewed by a journalist, or you're putting up a post on Facebook or Twitter, your message is always the same. So the message triangle has 3 sides to it. Obviously, it's a triangle. It has message 1, 2, and 3. But in the middle of the triangle, there is always the core message. And that core message is usually the goal of why you are communicating. And then you build all the other 3 messages around the goal to support it. Just to remind you, the goal or your core message should never change. It doesn't matter whom you're talking with or where you're talking from. Your goal should never change. For the 3 messages, or what we call the proofs, the messages that buffer your goal, that give detail and meaning to your goal, these messages, of course, change and they can vary. You can use specific facts, statistics, personal experiences, or quotes from experts, depending on whatever it is that you're talking about. Just to make it a little bit clearer, I would like to use Lina Tripathi's example. when Lina is communicating about the work that she's doing in gene editing, Lina's core message as she's communicating is to regulate genome edited products as products of conventional breeding. And the three messages that she used to give detail or evidence or support to her goals would be the challenge, what's at risk, and the solution or call to action. But as you're speaking about the challenge, let's now talk about the challenge that Lina and her team are addressing through her work. They are telling us that bananas are attacked by several pests and diseases, but especially the banana streak virus. And so she's using the tools of genetic engineering to come up with a banana that is resistant to this disease. So what is at risk? Let's say you're a policymaker and Lina has come to ask that you regulate the products of gene editing as conventional breeding. And you're asking her, if I don't do that, what will happen? Then she can tell you what is at risk. If we do not get a policy in place that regulates genome editing products like the products of conventional breeding, one, poverty will increase, because then farmers will continue to lose income from yield loss. Secondly, food insecurity will increase. Why? Because when plant pests and diseases continue unabated, they will continue to lead to 40% of yield loss on farmer plantations. And thirdly, it will stifle innovation. Scientists will be discouraged from innovating if their work is not going to reach the beneficiaries. If you're going to spend 10 years in the lab developing a product, and then there is a policy roadblock telling you we don't want your product to reach the intended beneficiary, then of course you lose heart. Okay. And finally, a call to action. As Lina is speaking on whatever platform, she will have to make a call to action, which is science-based policies which treat genome-edited products as similar to those that are conventionally bred. You may notice that your call to action is actually your goal framed in a different way. One thing to remember about communication or using the message triangle, always have a call to action. After you have spoken to a policymaker, please always make an ask of them. That ask that will enable you to achieve your goal. If it's primary school children and you just wanted to share with them the awe of science, make an ask of them. Ask them to go home and do something, whatever it is. Always make sure that you make an ask of your audience. So to recap the three messages that make up the message triangle, your first message can be the challenge that your science is addressing. The second message can be about what is at risk if the status quo doesn't change. And finally, the call to action. What do you want your audience to do for you?
So next we will have another opportunity to gather in breakout rooms. It'll be significantly smaller amount of time than the last activity, but this one will give you an opportunity to talk with each other for 3 minutes. So 1.5 minutes each. What is your core message? And that's simply your prompt. You can talk about the values that you're highlighting, at what's at stake, the problem that you are being challenged to address, and what solution you're offering. So don't think too hard, but do take notes because you will be using your core message a little bit later. So now that you all have had an opportunity to learn about who you're talking to, learn about what you are saying, this next slide will talk about content creation, and we're putting these pieces together. So first I want to talk about the algorithms, because there is a lot about algorithms that people are finding out about and learning, and how they work is really important. Who you follow determines what will pop up in your newsfeed. So if you're on Facebook, for example, and you go to someone's page and you click on, their role and who they are, you can follow them, but you also can unfollow them. Automatically, when you add a friend on Facebook, you're automatically added as a follower, and their content will automatically come to your newsfeed. If you want to be their friend and you don't want that, you can just unfollow them. There's a way to control what you see. Also, how algorithms work is that the content that pops up in your newsfeed, in addition to being the people that you follow, it'll also show you people whose pages you visit. It'll show you things that are similar to the posts that you engage with, that you click on, that you share, that you interact with. And each platform handles their algorithms a little differently. So TikTok prioritizes entertainment and for you content, and it's usually content from people that you don't know, but it's supposed to be content that it's engaging, and it's content similar to things that you've engaged in the past. For Instagram and Facebook, they try to balance the personal connection. So again, the people that you follow, the people whose pages that you interact with, but also what's trending. And then the ads that are specifically purchased to target people with your demographics. For YouTube, your watch time really drives what shows up for you. If you're researching, for example, on things about the Hebrew Bible, you'll start to get a ton of video suggestions about the Bible, about the Hebrew language. If you're doing a lot of content research for images for your church, for example, on Google, then you'll all of a sudden start getting similar ads on your Facebook page and on your Instagram page, and that's on purpose. These platforms, certainly in terms of advertising, are connected to what you search for, what you view, what you share. And if you're on X or Twitter, what you engage, but also what's trending, what the topics are that people are talking about the most. That's what you'll see popping up in your news feeds or on your timelines. Now, there are some churches that are there are many churches that do social media well. I didn't list any of the websites because I have my own personal thoughts about what makes a great website. and we could be talking about that all day. So I just instead focused on Instagram and Facebook, since that's where a majority of our churches are. We do have a number of folks on YouTube, and you'll see in the resource sheet, there are some links to YouTube pages that also do their media well. And so the first is the First Congregational Church of Benzonia. I think that this is a great Facebook page because it balances, the content, I can contact the people. There's relevant contact information. It's up to date. There's a balance of posts that are visual. There are some with words, but they're still visually stunning. People of different ages. There's a sneak peek into the sanctuary, so I know if I visited, this is what I'll see. And there are some people, so I know maybe I won't see all of those same people when I go, but I have an idea of what kind of people will be there if I visit. And then there's this performance about jazz, and then there's meal community conversation. So this lets me know that they do more than just gather on Sundays, that this is an active church with things happening throughout the week. And maybe they're also connecting with other groups, so it's not just them, that they are community connected church, and that they leverage all different sorts of ways to be in community. And then, of course, you see our conference minister. So then you know that there's a conference connection. And so this, to me, is a very engaging page. When I go to the next one, Cadillac First Congregational, it's similar in that I see the church and immediately I'm greeted with this flag, well, two flags, the American flag and then the LGBTQ flag. And for me personally, I noticed that they have the black and the brown stripes on this flag, which is really important to me as a person of color. Now, everyone else might not look at that in the same way. A normal pride flag without those colors certainly would suffice. But for me as a person of color, I don't know if I necessarily expect to see people of color, but I know that as a person of color, I would be welcomed in this space. And as a queer person, I definitely know I'd be welcomed in that space. Now I look at the page and there are a number of things that draw me in. There are people playing music. There's advertisements for things happening. I can buy things. I hear a message from this cool person, George. It's like, oh, well, what's happening here? And he has a fun shirt on. So I know that this must not be too uptight of a group. They look like they have a little fun. And there's some of their theology. So I know what they believe. So even if they didn't have the flags of the US or of the LGBTQ community, I know that they care about people, that they really stand for justice. And then I love to see the person working at the church on the door. You know, that communicates a variety of things, but it also says to me that they care about their facilities. The building isn't going to be falling apart when I get in there. I'm not going to be worried about my safety, that people actually care about this church in a number of ways. And the next one, and certainly it's last but not least, and I'll go back, see, is Kalamazoo First Congregational. Their Instagram page is really neat. I think the different videos, again, I hear from a person, but I also see some of their worship. I see some of their activities. They're appealing to a variety of groups, and I'm not going to continue with Facebook, so you'll get the picture, but they have a variety of content that appeals to a wide variety of folks, and it's fun and engaging. And the words aren't so many that I feel like I'm having to read a novel. It's just enough to grab my attention. So this is an activity that you'll do on your own, and it's just going to be another 5 minutes, but this requires you to move around some. So you're going to edit your core message. You're going to think about it. We're going to try to get it down to under 100 words. And that's not going to happen in 5 minutes. But what might happen in 5 minutes as you're thinking about your core message is what visual would go with your message. What is an image or a video that you could capture in your own space right now? In your space that you're sitting in, or if there is a picture or something online that you want to capture, what is something that you could put with your post? And I'm going to put a link to Pixabay in the chat. Pixabay is an online platform that allows for free pictures and images for folks who might want to use those kinds of things in their posts. So you might not have a picture that you're inspired to take in your space right now, but you might find something on Pixabay that speaks to your core message. So the idea is that you will find an image that connects with your core message in the next 5 minutes, and you're either going to share it on your own social media, or if you'd like to share it in our group, you can certainly do that. Or last but not least, if you don't want to share it on your social media, I will share it to mine, and I will invite our conference folks to share it as well. And so to do that, I've created this Dropbox folder that you can drop your posts into. So you have 3 ways to share. So for 5 minutes from now until 10:30, you're going to think about your core message, hone it a little bit, and then you're going to take an image or shoot a video. And the idea for the video is it's under a minute. We're not asking you to be Steven Spielberg here. Just under a minute, and post it. So the clock now begins to tick, and I wish you all well in your content creation. So arguably, 5 minutes isn't a lot of time to create compelling content, but sometimes the best content is created really in a short amount of time. I have made my best videos without thinking, planning, just in response to something happening. I pull out my phone and here's something, and oh my God, it's gone viral. And that same video, if I feel like I put in hours to think about, nothing happens with it. So I'm not saying don't plan, but I'm saying that sometimes a shorter amount of time is actually really great to just generate ideas and to get something out there, see what people like. So you might not be finished, and that's okay. But if you are and you've posted things, that's great. Tag the Michigan Conference in it. I'm going to post something at the end of our conversation, and I'm going to tag the Michigan Conference in it, and I'm excited. If you don't want to do that, again, upload it to the Dropbox folder, and I'll post it on your behalf. And if I have your permission, I'll tag you in it. So it's a really exciting opportunity to just start generating content without overthinking it. So now I want to just switch gears a little bit, and I do want to talk about websites because there is an opportunity for us to get some help. The United Church of Christ has what's called UCC Everywhere, and it's a web hosting platform for churches. And here is also a blog that talks about how to tell your church's story online, common mistakes that churches make, how to write alternate text for images on your website, tips for social media maintenance, why you need a church website, and even developing a voice and tone for your church website. Now, this next one here is one that I appreciate. What questions should your church website answer? Again, there are tips to having a website, what kind of content to share, how to keep your website secure, and everything you need to know about SEO and more. And so I urge you to, as you are thinking about your church's website, go to UCC Everywhere. I'll also list this in the chat. It's on our resource list. And also think about what your website communicates and how, as you're retooling and fine tuning things, just to keep in mind, again, what is a first time visitor encountering when they visit your website? So we have a video that will tell us about how we can tell a great story in under 1 minute. All of these pieces work together, and you will have an opportunity to hear why.
Burger. So now we know how close I am to finishing the competition, thus the video.
That one gets me every time. I'm not suggesting that we all, do something like that, but you get the picture that sometimes a lot can happen in under 60 seconds, and that can be very engaging. So we do have an opportunity to tell our stories in a variety of ways. And in order to really think about how we are telling our stories, certainly there is the website, certainly there are these platforms, but I want us to talk in our small groups for 5 minutes. And we probably won't be able to talk about all of these things, but what platforms do you use? What core messages or core message does your church convey? What does your church communicate to visitors or outsiders? Who engages your church's media? How do you follow up and connect with those who engage? I'll put these questions in our groups, and in the 5 minutes that we have, pick one or two and share those with one another. So now that you've had an opportunity to talk with one another about your platforms, I want to talk just a little bit about online safety. There are additional resources in our resource sheet. And I have 4 tips that I want to share. And the first is don't argue with people online. If you have to, delete or hide the comments or ignore people that have hateful, awful things to say. Or if you don't want to delete them and you want to show the truth of how people are, leave those comments up, but let other people comment on your behalf. I've had many friends who have been attacked by people with different ideologies. And instead of arguing them down and going down these rabbit holes, they get friends or supporters to come into the comment section and to talk on their behalf. And sometimes that is a public demonstration for all of us who might not be engaging in the conversation to read the comments and to see the comments happening and to see how people are showing up for you. It also gives folks really an opportunity to see what you and your followers or friends believe as well. I had a person who posted and said that I'm not engaging in your comments, but reading your comments shows me and tells me what you think about people like me. And so just being mindful that a lot can happen online, but you can control how you interact. Tip number 2, unfollow and follow to control what appears in your newsfeed. If you're tired of seeing certain posts from certain kinds of folks or certain things, just unfollow the people. You know, I'm not telling everybody that they need to live online, but I don't think everyone needs to abandon online spaces because of harmful content. I think you can just remove the people who are posting harmful things from your pages. Now, that might not always be the case from news channels or from ads, but even in some of those cases, you can customize ads. You can right click on some of those posts to say, hide this ad. That way Facebook or Instagram knows to better tailor certain ads for you. They want you to engage on their platform. So if you're having a hard time with certain posts and you're unfollowing constantly, they want to better match you with content that you'll actually want to consume. I love reading funny things, deep and wonderful things, but every once in a while, something disturbing will come across my newsfeed. And if I don't like it, I just unfollow it. I don't want that on my page. I don't want that in my spirit. You don't have to consume everything that's online. Number 3, checking in. When you are, especially on Facebook or Instagram, and you're able to put your location and check in, it's a great way to advertise the space, advertise what's happening. Hey, I'm at First Congregational today. I'm checking in. That lets people know that First Congregational is a happening space. It's awesome when people check in. I love checking in. But if there is a threat for your safety, if you're at perhaps a demonstration, there's some contentious conversations happening in your city, you can take all the photos and maybe do the posts and check in when you're gone or at the end of the event. You can still check in. It'll still show up at that location when you search and put that location's name in as you're checking in. But maybe that extra step for safety, checking in after the event, might be better than checking in during the event. Now, if you're at an event and you want people to show up, then checking in during the event makes sense because people in real time can see that you're there and they might want to come hang out with you. Number 4, regularly update your website and media platforms to ensure accurate information. As you saw with the case of First Congregational in Benzonia, their Facebook page had all kinds of updated information on it. Now, if you go to maybe their website and you wonder who their pastor is, you might have to do some scrolling. I see pastors saying, no, yeah, it's not on there. But I know who you are. And others might want to know that too. And having the ability for more than one person to be in control of these platforms is key. If someone passes away, someone quits, we had a church just this last week, their social media manager up and quit. And they're struggling to figure out what's going to happen for Sunday. Always have at least one other person know the access codes, passwords, and login information for all of your media sites and platforms, and document how those things happen so that, let's say you only have one person who manages it, you at least still have a document as a backup if something happens to that person, and that document can be given to someone else, and that person can be trained and learn how to navigate and use these spaces, because every church doesn't have multiple staff people who can do all of these things. Now some do, and that's great, but even in those cases, having documentation on how to navigate these platforms is really important. It created some images at the bottom just to show you. We have one is an image of a press conference that Pastor Kim Newport gave in response to some hateful and negative comments that she was receiving online from people. And this was another opportunity. Again, let's not fight fire with fire and be offensive and terrible. Let's again remember our core message. What is the core message of our faith? She wasn't just speaking to the people who were hateful. She was speaking to all of us who follow, like, and subscribe to her channels. And the message was still consistent. The message that she would share with people who would be haters and the message that she would share with people who are followers is the same. And that's that we live our faith by our actions. And so obviously the video was much longer than that. This is just a snapshot. But again, it's that consistency. And the person who's sharing that selfie, again, you control your content. If you want your page to be all kittens and butterflies, you can make it be that. If you want your page to be filled with news and information or posts from local churches, you can do that too. It just takes some maneuvering on your end to make sure that your page is safe for you. And again, last but not least, when you check into places, make sure that it's a place that if you want people to show up to in real time, that you are checking in real time. But if you're not really sure about how that would be, but you still want to advertise that space, checking in after everything is all said and done. All of the resources that I shared are on this resource sheet. I've updated it to include the resources that are in this training as well as in the first training video. And if you have additional resources to share, please send them my way and I'll make sure that they get on that resource sheet as well. We've come to the end of our presentation, and now I want to open it up for some questions. We have just a few minutes remaining. Are there any burning questions or comments that you have after we have gone through this second level of our online media training for churches?
You have not talked about the things like MailChimp or similar way of communicating with your congregation. We may not have time now, but maybe sometime we can talk about that.
So this is great. So platforms like Constant Contact, MailChimp, and there are several others that allow for email communications to go to your list of people. And again, all the same rules apply. Know who your audience is. Be visual. The more informative, the better, but the less words, the better. There's nothing like getting one of those emails and there's just words of words and words and words, and then maybe one image. People are going to just keep scrolling. Again, the attention span is really short, and visual images will capture people's attention right away. Information about events will capture people's attention. Yes, you have to have some words because it's an email. People expect to read, but people don't expect to read for a long period of time. A great example is the Michigan Conference newsletter, filled with a ton of images, things to click on. It's almost too much. So you actually want to come back to it so that you can see what's all there, but not too much in terms of there's an overabundance of words and it just feels overwhelming, but too much in the sense that you can't get it all in 3 seconds. And so you're actually attracted to the visual outline of everything, but then you're like, wow, there's a lot of information and I really want to dig in. I'm sure many of you have great newsletters as well, but newsletters are important for churches, and there has to be that balance between visual content and the written content, personal stories, members of the congregation, ways for people to contact you, making sure that all of the links work. That's another thing in newsletters. Especially if they link to other places, just making sure that those links work. The one thing I love about newsletters, especially with MailChimp and Constant Contact, is that you can see who opens and reads your newsletters. And so then that also tells you about the effectiveness of those communications. If you notice that your reading rate is lower than you would hope it to be, maybe inviting some folks to give you an audit, give you some feedback about the newsletter, what they wish that they would see. And then for the folks that open it and read it regularly, ask them what they like about it, why they're drawn to it, why they keep coming back. Thank you for those questions, Margarita.
Well, before we left, I was talking to Patty in one of our, and I don't know where your church is. So I just wanted to ask that.
I'm in Benzonia.
Oh, we've heard about Benzonia. Yeah.
Yeah, way up here.
Oh, we drove through Benzonia about a week and a half ago. Yeah.
We're gonna stop by next time we're in the area.
Perfect. Thank you. You can't miss the church. It's right in the middle of town.
Yeah, beautiful bird watching very nearby.
And I want to say hello to Mimi as well. She joined a little bit afterwards. It's good to see you, and it's great to have you on.
Yeah, I was confused in terms of the time zone stuff. I thought I was just on time, and then I realized, oh no, you got another hour ahead of me. But this was really helpful. So I just put in the chat. We knew each other at Minnesota UCC in a variety of ways, and I'll just say media and computer stuff is far from even my second language. So it's like I know things can be done, but I have no idea how to do them. And as an artist, I really know that once I would jump into this, I would be really excited. And so the church I'm serving definitely needs some TLC and tending to both the Facebook and the website. So this was just so helpful for me to how to engage in this process.
Glad to hear
And
that.
you're 4 hours away. Yes.
I know, and I was thinking it was 3, but anyway.
Well, how about others? We have just a couple minutes. Is there anything that you would like to lift up or share? And certainly, you can always message me and I will always respond. Again, I love ministry and I love what I do. It's an opportunity to express my faith, and it's also an opportunity to connect. So there's never too many questions and there's never a dumb question.
So let me just say that, out of my discussion, with Mimi, the idea that you had that the core message never changes makes it really hard to find one that doesn't change with the audience that you have. And of course, and I guess it can change for extremely different audiences. So professional or religious or whatever. But anyway, I think it's very hard to have it be unchanging unless you have a comment on how to do that.
Well, if your core message, and we're getting to the end of our time, but I'll say as people of faith, I would say that our core message is the gospel. And how you interpret the gospel to each community might be nuanced, but the core message of the gospel remains the same. Now, if we were engineers or if we were hunters, then clearly our core message would be very, very different than that. But But we have come to the end of our time, and I just want to thank you all so much for your participation and contributions. And for those who are watching after, thank you so much for your participation. And if there are questions that you have, certainly send them my way, and I'll be happy to connect with you. But in the meantime, I leave you with this blessing. May the peace of Christ, which surpasses all understanding, guide and guard our hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Go in peace, my friends. God bless you.
Go in
Thank
peace.
you.
Thank you.